Good evening and welcome to the Year 11 Information Evening. I know this is a very different format to the one we would normally deliver, but I'm hoping that Year 11s are going to get a great deal from this as they're going to be able to access the information throughout the entire year, and particularly at a point when they're going to need it the most. The curriculum team leaders have put together a huge amount of information for you about each of the different areas and the subjects, and it means that you can access that at any particular time, especially before mock exams or when you're completing NEAs. I know this is a very worrying time for everybody, and it usually would be for Year 11s with the impending GCSE exams coming up in a few months' time. But I understand that obviously the last 6 months disruption will mean that a lot of you are very nervous about what you're going to be doing and how well you're going to cope over the coming months as well as you prepare for those GCSEs. The curriculum teams have worked very hard to look at curriculum plans and put in the reconnection programme for each of the different subject areas to enable you to reconnect with the curriculum and, more importantly, make the progress that you need to be successful in your GCSE exams as we progress through the next few months or so. From a parent point of view, I completely understand that parents will be especially nervous and want the best of their children. And the house teams are there to enable you to ask questions and gain further information and support. If you need it as parents, you are just as important as the students through this process too. We have a really good IAG programme that will enable the students not only to focus on the GCSE exams, but also to think about progression routes through to next year, what career paths are wanting to happen and take place, and what is available for everybody to access over the next few months or so, and even the next few years. And the team will be talking about that with you as well, and you'll be getting lots of support with all of those different areas. So I want to hand you over to Mr. Southwell now, who will talk you through the initial process, and to our curriculum team leaders. And I just want to take the opportunity to wish you all the best of luck. I know that we've got a really good Year 11 who've come back in and are working really hard, and I have seen that in the classrooms at the moment. And I think some of them have been quite surprised how much they've actually remembered since coming back over the summer anyway. But the best of luck to all of you, and we're all expecting great things, and we're here to support you all to do that. Thank you very much.
Good evening and welcome to the Year 11 Information Evening. My name is Phil Southwell, I'm Deputy Head Teacher, and one of my main responsibilities and oversights is to make sure that Year 11s not only turn into successful and positive members of the community, but also get the best possible outcomes to enable them to move on to the next steps in their education or employment. One of the first things I'm going to do is run through the format of the evening, and I won't apologise, there will be lots of information that we're giving out this evening, and one of the benefits of having this event and being able to record it afterwards is that it will be there to be viewed at any stage throughout Year 11. So the overview of a Year 11 student. I'll talk a little bit around expectations of students. I'll talk about exams, both mock exams and public exams. I'll talk about the extracurricular support that we can offer to students, obviously COVID restrictions permitting. I'll also talk about the pastoral support and where students can access that. Mrs. Kane will then speak a little bit around CEIAG. We'll then talk about the subjects, so the curriculum team leaders will explain all the information that's necessary for their subject areas, and as part of this video we will talk about English and Maths, and then you'll have an option to click into all of the other subjects and just look at the ones that apply to you. So all the way from the sciences through to all of the other option subjects. What you'll hear from curriculum team leaders is the course requirements that they have, the course structure, any key dates and the additional support that can be offered by our school. At the end, we'll normally offer you the opportunity to ask questions. We have had some questions that have been sent through on the email. I will try and answer those as best as we can as part of this presentation, but if there are any other questions that you'd like to send through, please use the email address that we'll provide you with at the end of the presentation. I am going to do a quick sales pitch to begin with. Flashcards is something that I promote each year with the Year 11 students and the sixth form, but I think they're one of the best ways for students to revise. It allows you to refresh things in your memory and to keep things prominent so you don't forget. So it helps with that long-term memory. We sell them for £1 per pack. You get 48 coloured cards and they're available from the finance office and also through WisePay. So I advise students, get as many of those cards as you can, have a different set for each subject. They are an extremely valuable resource. So an overview of a Year 11 student. I'm going to talk through the expectations. Year 11 is a difficult year. It's a lot of pressure. It's probably the most pressurised year you've had since you started school, and COVID-19 has just added to that situation. However, we will still get through this in a positive way, and I'll hopefully take some steps later in the presentation to explain how that will happen. So the first expectation we have is that Year 11s are role models. They are the top of the main school. So we do expect them to conduct themselves in a way befitting of Year 11 students. So that's manners, that's uniform, that's conduct and behaviour around the school. We do expect uniform to be as it should be, so we try and maintain the highest possible standards, and we expect Year 11 to model that for all the other year groups below them. We also expect students to be in tune with their academic progress, so they know where they're at, they know what to achieve, and they do their very best to try and achieve those targets and hopefully exceed them. There are also lots of extracurricular opportunities. They have been slightly delayed this year because of COVID-19, but I will talk about those slightly later, so please make the most of them. Students that have attended extracurricular sessions previously have gone on to get the best possible GCSE grades. We do expect students to prepare for exams as well. Please do not leave things to the last minute. The more you can prepare from today onwards, the better your grades are going to be. That's for GCSEs, that's for BTECs, and that's something you can carry forward going through to A-levels, apprenticeships, university, whatever it may be. And the last thing, be organised. If you know what's coming up, you know your deadlines, you know when you have to revise for assessments, etc., then that is the best possible place to be in. It will get you the best possible results. So, your journey. As far as we know, we have 30 school weeks until the first public exam. I have put an asterisk on the presentation that goes alongside this conversation because that is only provisional. That is subject to change, and we should hear in the next 4 to 6 weeks about confirmed GCSE exam dates. As a Year 11 student, you should know exactly where you are. Know your current grade, know your level so you know where you should be aspiring to from this current point. Know your targets, speak to your staff, speak to your curriculum team leaders, your heads of house and your form tutors to know exactly where you are in each subject and what you would have to do to go forwards. Obviously the best thing to help you is your PLC because it identifies your strengths and your weaknesses in every subject that you study. If you use those in school and at home and work on those weaker areas, those red and amber topics on your PLCs, you're going to make the most progress going forwards. So if you don't have your PLC for any of the subjects, please ask your teachers. Have a printed copy that you can have at home as well as one that you can have in school. Exams. I'm going to just go back a step. The exam grading system changed a couple of years ago and it's still unfamiliar to certain people. It took me a while as a teacher to get my head around it, but all GCSEs are now graded at 9 down to 1, so that replaces the old A star to G system. BTECs are graded from distinction star down to passes, and OCRs are graded in exactly the same way. So child development is the only OCR course that we offer. Grade 4s, that is classed as a standard pass, and a grade 5 is classed as a strong pass. If you're looking to move on to sixth form, if you're going to go on to university, etc., then you are looking to obtain at least a grade 4 and ideally a grade 5. But a grade 4 will allow you to move on to the next step. So in old money, that's a grade C. You will find that there are very few controlled assessments. You have some NEAs in certain subject areas, typically the practical subjects, and you will have some BTEC qualifications that have exams and assessments that go alongside the coursework. For the vast majority of your subjects, you will sit all of your exams in the summer of 2021. In terms of exams and wanting to prepare you as best as we can, we would normally offer you a set of mocks in the summer term. Obviously that wasn't possible. What we have looked at is how we can ensure that you still have a mock experience, but we don't lose too much teaching time. You have lost some teaching time, but that's nothing to panic about. So what we want to do is give you a full experience, and that is going to take place in January. You will have all of your subjects sat over a 2 to 3 week period, doing all of the papers that you will do in the summer, and with all the full access arrangements that any students require. What we tend to do after a mock exam period is we have a results morning, and that entails parents getting invited into school to be with their sons and daughters to pick up the exam results. We have them in a sealed envelope as you would do in the summer for your final results, and what happens is you're able to open those results on your own with your parents, and then you will have a conversation with a senior member of staff, Mrs. Kane, or a head of house to discuss where your results may get you. If you're slightly disappointed with your results, it might be how do I now get back on track? If you're really pleased, it might just be clarifying where you are, and it might be looking at the options that are open to you post-16. As it stands, public examinations are scheduled to begin on the 14th of May. Again, that is a provisional date, so we are waiting to hear from the DFE to see whether those dates will get pushed further back, as has been indicated in the press. In terms of revision and independent study, it's really important you get this right and you start it as soon as you possibly can. So I'll just give you a few tips about how I feel you should be doing it. First of all, have a sensible study programme. So balance it out throughout the week and start from this week and map out all the way through to the summer term. Don't try and put too much on at once, try and break it into small sensible chunks. So little and often is the motto that we use in school. Small chunks of about 20 to 30 minutes, done fairly frequently. And don't try and do hours and hours on a day. Do 3 or 4 maximum, have a break and do some more the next day. Or even have the next day off and do them the following day. Build in some social time for yourself, whether that's in the evenings, whether it's at the weekends. Don't try and overdo it. If you burn out, then it's very difficult to recover from that point. So be sensible, have a reasonable amount of study time, but please balance it out. Once you've got your study programme, please follow it. It's essential that you follow your study plan. If you fall behind on it, you're going to find it very, very difficult. In fact, it gets more and more difficult the closer you get to the summer to catch up. So please have a sensible study plan that you stick to. If you miss a session for whatever reason it might be, just reschedule it to another time on your calendar. It's also really important to balance your study out. So balance your subjects out. Don't do 3 or 4 days of maths and then 3 or 4 days of English, because by the time you get back round to that same starting subject, you've had a long period of time where you haven't studied that subject. So break them up through the week. And it's also really important that you study every subject. When you go on to your next step, whether that's college, sixth form, an apprenticeship, or even further down the line with university or a job application, they will look at all of your exam grades. So it's really important you have a solid baseline from all of those subject areas. Also, you might focus on things you like at the moment, and you might change your mind. You might change your career path later down the line, maybe in year 11 or 12 or 13. So please keep a broad overview of your subject areas. And finally, on revision time, make sure it's good quality. Don't be in front of the TV. Try not to have other people around you unless you're studying as a group. Try not to have your phone on, whether you've got an app on your phone or whatever it might be. Make sure it's a study app. If you've got social media pinging up on your phone every 30 seconds, you are not taking in anywhere near enough information as you should do. So 10 or 20 minutes or even 30 minutes of good study time is much better than 3 or 4 hours of poor study time. So please make sure your study time is good quality. We have purchased as a school lots of resources that will support you, both in school and at home. The first one I'm going to talk to you about are the Pixel apps. There are 6 Pixel apps and they all have the same login. I will email all Year 11 students a refresher of the login details. The reason I haven't done that already is because Pixel actually changed the passwords in the 2nd or 3rd week of September each year. So we can't issue those to you until that's happened. So like I said, there are 6 apps. So there's one for maths, there's one for English literature, there's one for history, and there's one for geography. It's the same login for each of them. There's also 2 others which are useful for all students. The first one is called Unlock, and that entails you studying keywords in your subject areas and how they can be used effectively. And also they're taken from previous year's exams. So it's the language you're likely to be hearing and using in your exams in the summer. And the final one is the Times Table app from Pixel. That's really good if you find that your numeracy skills aren't particularly strong and they could do with improving. So again, 6 really good apps from Pixel, all using the same login. The next product is called GCSE Pod. We have found this probably the most useful product out of all the ones that we've used. We've had it now in school for just over 2 years, and the 2 year groups that have gone through have improved their results year on year. Those students that have used it the most and have really engaged with it have got the better GCSE grades and the better BTEC grades. They cover virtually every GCSE subject. There are 1 or 2 that they don't cover, and your curriculum leaders or your subject staff will tell you which ones they are, and they'll direct you in another direction. What GCSE Pod is it's a series of podcasts on small bite-sized snippets of subject content for each of the subject areas, and for certain subjects there's also some supplementary questions that go with that. It's a really powerful homework tool that you can do in those short bursts of revision that I've been speaking about. If you travel on the bus, they're ideal. You can download them, you can stream them, so you can do both. If you download them at home or download them in school, then it won't use your data up. As a year group, since we started using this with you in year 10, over 7,500 pods have been downloaded or streamed by your year group. That is a lot of learning happening. Mostly that's away from school, so that's only supplementing and improving your GCSE grades that you're going to get at the end of year 11. If you're not using GCSE Pod, I would ask you the question, why not? Because it is such a valuable and powerful resource. So please go on, take a look, maybe show your parents how it works and what's on there. Investigate it together. Seneca, another really good resource that lots of staff use with their students. There is a login for this as well. It's not a paid subscription one, so anybody can set up an account, including parents. You can build your own curriculum within it. And the curriculum that you build can be subject specific as well as exam board specific. So you can have only your subjects and only the exam boards that we offer at school. So it's tailored to your needs and your education. And again, it's in bite-sized snippets, so you can use it in those revision sessions where you're not trying to pile too much information at once and you don't overload yourself. I previously referred to period 7 lessons that we offer year 11 students, so that extracurricular support. Because of COVID restrictions, we weren't able to offer that from September in the first week or two, but we're now in a position to be able to launch those from the week beginning the 28th of September. So what that entails are year 11 students being invited into school for period 7 lessons. So rather than going home at 3:05, they'll stay through till 3:55 on that evening. It is a calendared series of sessions, so different subjects will be on different nights, and this will change from half term to half term. I will publish on the school website a calendar that really clearly explains which sessions are on, which nights, with which staff and in which rooms. I'll also give students a printed copy that they can keep on them or take home so they're aware of when those sessions are. These sessions will run on a Tuesday, Wednesday and a Thursday, so you might be in school for all 3 of those days, or you might be invited in for 1 or 2 of those days. But if you are invited in and it's going to be beneficial for you, please come into those sessions. If you just pick up one additional bit of information or gain 1 extra mark for your exams, that might be what puts you up to the next grade or the next level. So they are really important. We have found over the past years that we've run these period 7 sessions that students who attend regularly get the higher GCSE grades. So they're essential. Please try your utmost to try and get into them. In terms of staff support, we are a large school, we have a lot of staff that can support you and they'll try their very best, go above and beyond to get you the best possible outcomes and support you as students and young people through this difficult year. So you have your subject staff, you will see them each lesson you have in your subject areas. Please ask them primarily about your subject progress. Talk to them about your PLCs, your strengths and your weaknesses and how you can improve them. They may tailor some of their lessons for your individual or group needs, but they will certainly be able to tailor your study at home and give you that guidance you may need based on your red and amber topics on your PLC. You also have the subject leaders, the curriculum team leaders. They have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience that you can draw upon to help you. So if they email you, if they speak to you, if they're in an assembly giving you some instructions or some advice, please listen to what they have to say, because they're the people who lead those areas and year on year have improved results in those areas. Your form tutors, you see them every day, so if you need to ask advice, ask a question or ask a favour from them, please do that. They are there to support you. They know how difficult year 11 is, and you have specialist form tutors who do this year on year. Your heads of house, again, they want you to be the very best version of you. I work really closely with each of the 4 heads of house, and we do a lot that you probably won't ever see, trying to make sure that we get the best support that we can in place for you as students. So please speak to them, let them know how you're feeling, how you're doing, and what we can do to support you further. There's also specialist teams around the school, such as the inclusion team. So again, please make use of them. You know where they are, and if you need any email address for any of the school staff, you'll see a list in your planner as well as on the school website. And finally, there's me. One of my main roles is to oversee year 11 and to guide you through what is a difficult year. I'm fairly visible around school. You see me every day on duty. You know where my office is, and I'm always on the end of an email. So if you have any questions or any concerns that you'd like to speak to me about, please come and ask me. COVID-19. I've deliberately left that till later in the presentation this evening because it's not as scary as the press and the media are making out. And I'm not talking about the virus itself, because obviously that is scary. What I'm talking about is what's being said in the press and the media about students in Year 11 and Sixth Form not being able to catch up, being so far behind. That just is simply not the case. All the students in England stopped school at the same time, and all the students in England have gone back to school at the same time. So we are not behind anybody. We are in exactly the same situation as everybody else. What we have to do is work incredibly hard to ensure that you know everything you need to, you can recall everything and apply everything by the time the summer exams come around. So we are not catching up, we are not panicking. What we are going to be doing is reconnecting you with your learning. I think as you've been in school for the first 2 weeks, a lot of you have been surprised by how much you can actually recall. That's because your learning up until lockdown had been good. So we are now going to reconnect you with some of the content that you were doing prior to lockdown, some of the content that was offered to you over lockdown, and also the stuff that we're doing from September through till Christmas. So we are going to be using something called a reconnection plan. These are visible on the school website now. So if you go to curriculum, drop down to reconnection plans under Year 11, you'll see every subject listed. And in a reconnection plan, you will see some course content from the end of Year 10 and the start of Year 11. And next to that content, you will see a hyperlink or a resource. That is something that your curriculum leaders and your subject staff think would be beneficial to reconnect you with your learning. There's also a date next to it, and that's a suggested date that you might want to revise that because it matches in with the sequence of learning that we have done over Year 10 and into Year 11. And all of that reconnection plan is to not replace lessons, not to replace revision, that's to supplement those two things. So it's in addition and ideally done at home or in any provision we can provide you with after school. In terms of course content and COVID-19, you will probably have seen in the press that some things are being taken out of certain courses. At the moment, that is speculation and it's in its draft form. By the end of this month, we should know from the DfE and the exam boards what the content of each of the courses is going to be. As soon as we know what is in each course or out of each course, we will make that public and share it with the students and the parents, and we'll do that in a variety of means. So via an email, via a letter, and via our social media and website. In terms of exam dates, I have mentioned already that the provisional date is the 14th of May. That's when they begin and they go on for 3 weeks to 4 weeks from that period. However, they are provisional and we are waiting for the government and the DfE to make an announcement as to when Year 11 summer exams will begin. As we said previously, this will be published and communicated in exactly the same methods. And Period 7 lessons. I've briefly mentioned Period 7 lessons already. We weren't able to offer them at the start of September as we normally would have done because of the COVID restrictions and coming back into school and everybody finding their feet. We're now in a position where we're fairly comfortable that we can offer these in a safe way and we can really make an inroad into the progress of the Year 11 students. So from the 28th of September, Period 7 lessons will begin. You'll now see 2 slides, and on each of those slides you've got a couple of posters, so that's 4 posters in total, and they're just some ideas. Some of them have website links on them as well as to how students can revise effectively at home without making some of the common mistakes, and also how parents may support that. Insight. Insight is an online portal we have in school, and it's there to connect parents and families with the school. And you can access them on a laptop, on a smartphone, anything that has the internet basically. What the package includes is access to progress data and assessment information, school timetables, exam information such as exam timetables and exam results, attendance information, and behaviour and exclusion data. So it's really important that parents sign up to Insight so you can have that insight into how your students are doing at school. If you don't have an Insight account, you'll notice at the bottom of the slide there is an email address. If you send an email to that email address, what you will find is that they will set an account up for you in a matter of days and you'll have access to all of that information. Finally, from me, contact details. It's really important this year, with lots of our work being online and virtual, that we have your correct contact details. In your communication inviting you to this evening, there was an email address, that was y11info@radcliffeschool.org.uk. Please would you be able to reply to that? So each and every family, please reply to that, and could you confirm your contact details? And what we're asking for in that email is the student name, the tutor group, your postal address, the contact telephone numbers of parents or emergency contacts, and a contact email. The contact email is particularly important for In Touch and for other school messages. I'm now going to hand you over to Mrs. Kane, who's going to talk you through the advice and support we can offer you, and she is our CEIAG coordinator. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Laura Kane and I am the Radcliffe School's Careers Lead. My official title is Careers Education, Information and Advice and Guidance, but Careers Advisor would equally cover all of that. I'm a member of the Careers Development Institute. I'm a fully qualified careers advisor, and as part of my role I have to ensure that your child is spoken to with impartiality, to give them informed advice so that they can make the decisions for their future. So it's very much about being impartial and telling your child all the pathways forward for their next destinations, whether that be a sixth form, a college, an apprenticeship, whatever they decide to do. I'm based in the sixth form in Radcliffe, so students can come down and find me there, or they can email me, or they can come to the careers drop-in that runs twice a week. So, to give you some context as to what your child isn't and isn't allowed to do when they leave school, back in 2013 there was new legislation to raise the participation age for young people that were in school. This means that your child has to remain in some form of education or employment with training until their 18th birthday. So gone are the days of them leaving school and just going into employment. They do have to ensure that they have education or employment with training. So this can take the form of a sixth form, it can take the form of a college, apprenticeships and traineeships. And it can include employment, but it's really important to note that as part of that, they have to have training of 280 guided learning hours per year, which basically equates to 1 day a week. And there aren't that many employers out there, obviously, that would offer that, so very few young people take that option. All the destinations for Year 11 are reported on to the local council as per the requirements. And any student that is not participating then becomes noted as NEET, and that stands for Not in Employment, Education or Training. And clearly we don't want that for your child, and I know you don't want that for themselves as well. So normally we would present the next steps PowerPoint presentation in an assembly to Year 11, but due to the restrictions I will now be presenting this in the Modern Britain classes over the next 4 weeks. So every child should see me over the next 4 weeks. And at that point, as well as talking about the opportunities and the career pathways that they can take, I will also be discussing the importance of their English and maths and their sciences as well. That grade 4 is absolutely key, especially for maths and English. The reason for that is if they don't achieve a grade 4 in school, then they will have to retake that with their next training provider, whether that's an apprenticeship or a college or another sixth form. Students are entitled to have a one-to-one conversation with me if they would like to do so, or they can come along to my drop-in clinics, which are held in sixth form twice a week, and they will have been emailed to find out when those are. So it really depends on what the student would like. If they want a very quick chat and just to check something, then come to the drop-in. If they want something a little bit more in depth, then it's better to have a meeting. And they need to find out now about the information on sixth forms and the college open evenings. It's really important they find out what the entrance requirements are, because students seem to not realise that all providers will be asking for certain requirements, even the apprenticeships. And so they need to find out what it is that they want to study and what the expectation is of their GCSEs to get onto that course. That should all be available on the college and sixth form websites, and then apprenticeships individually as they advertise their vacancies. Apprenticeships, we try to make it clear that apprenticeships are very competitive. They already were, but now with COVID, we are facing less opportunities in the local area than were out there. So what I say is, they need to make sure that they have always got a plan B. It's all very fine to say I want an apprenticeship, but if they don't get one, what are they going to do instead? College places can become full, especially towards the end of the summer, and the same with sixth forms, they will have a cut-off date, so they may not accept any late applications. And around about January, February, we will have one-to-one meetings with either myself or a member of the senior leadership team to ensure that what the students' plans are, that they're appropriate for their career path and that they are actually going to be able to achieve those entrance requirements. So the students really need to make sure that they're doing some research on this. And again, because they've got their GCSEs coming, it's better to do this earlier so that they can say, yep, I've applied to everything I need to, and I'm just going to get on with concentrating on my GCSEs. So often parents say to me, how can I help my child? What should I do? Students always say to me that the dreaded question that they get from parents is when they're sitting around the dining table of an evening and the parent says, so have you decided what you're going to do with your life yet? And the answer from my point of view is that quite often they do not have a definitive career plan, and it's absolutely fine that they don't. And even if they do have a plan, it may well change. And you might sometimes feel like you're slightly on a roller coaster with them as to what they do and don't want to. I know with my son, one minute he wants to be a teacher, the next minute he wants to be in the police, and he changes like the wind. It's important that you're realistic with your child and that you explain to them that if they are thinking that they're going to go into something that their predicted grades and their mocks are not indicating, that you're quite candid with them and that you say to them that, maybe it's achievable somewhere along the line, but that they shouldn't set themselves up for an A level in maths, for instance, if they're currently predicted 4s or 5s, because they won't cope with the course content. So perhaps talk about your experiences, what you did in the past, how you felt at their age, and also talk about, that they need to be resilient and that they need to keep trying and applying, especially if it's apprenticeships. They may feel quite rejected if they keep being turned down. So I always say to the students, it's a little bit like being on a trapeze. If you imagine being at the circus, that they are going to be swinging on this trapeze, and then as they get towards the end of the year, they're going to do their exams and they're going to let go and they're going to try and catch the next trapeze. And I always say to them, what if? Is there a safety net below that trapeze? Because if you don't get the exam results that you want to go on to your next destination, then you're going to crash, and we don't want that to happen. So for all students, I encourage an application to sixth form and to the college, or college and apprenticeships, just in case they don't get their first choice. If you are worried at all or you need extra advice, then obviously I am here to support you as well as your child. So please do make sure you contact me. So my email is on the slides in front of you, so you can contact me through there. But other places to get information, obviously we have a school Facebook, and there is information for parents on our website underneath the careers heading. National Careers Service, there is a web chat and a free telephone service should you want to talk to anybody there. And you can also look on the National Apprenticeship Service. So that's it from me. I've covered a lot of information in a very quick amount of time. So as I said, any problems, just let me know.
Hi, good evening. My name's Joseph Berry, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the English language and English literature qualifications that we offer at the Radcliffe. So what qualifications will your child receive? Well, they'll get 2 GCSEs, one in English language and one in English literature. In terms of what your child will study in English language, paper 1 is explorations in creative reading and writing, and that paper is 1 hour and 45 minutes. Section A is the reading section, where they'll get an extract from a fictional piece of writing, and they'll have 4 questions that are comprehension based. Section B is the writing section, and they'll be asked to respond to a prompt and do some descriptive or narrative writing. Paper 2, also 1 hour and 45, it's called Writers' Viewpoints and Perspectives. And whereas paper 1 is the fiction paper, this is the non-fiction paper. So your child will be reading 2 non-fiction sources and asked questions that some of which compare the 2 sources, some of which are comprehension questions on one of the sources. Section B on that paper is writing to present an argument. So that will be an article or a letter or something like that. So in literature, this is subject to the board's decisions over the next month, but in literature your child will be studying Shakespeare, that's Macbeth, Dickens, A Christmas Carol, that's a 19th century novel, and each question will be an extract-based question. So there'll be an extract from Macbeth, followed by a question that asks your child to talk about the extract and compare it to other parts in the play. Same for A Christmas Carol, an extract from the novel, and they'll base their answer on that, but without glances to the rest of the novel. There is also modern texts and poetry, which is the second exam. Modern texts is an Inspector Calls, and this time they'll just get a question relating to the play, but no extract, so it's a sort of broader thematic question. And section B is poetry from the conflict cluster of the AQA anthology. So your child should have an AQA anthology at home, which is annotated for all of the 15 poems. Section C is an unseen poetry section where they will be presented with a poem that they haven't read before, and in fact 2 poems they haven't read before, and a sort of language analysis question followed by a comparison question. In terms of revising for English language, it's very broad what your child can be revising, but we do ask them to look at 19th to 21st century sources. The sources in the fiction and non-fiction papers will vary, and they'll have one from the 19th, one from the 20th, one from the 21st century. So anything like travel writing, which was actually very popular in the 19th century, if you look at writers like Dickens, for example, up to today's writers, Bill Bryson, etc. These are all good authors to be reading. Novels, letters, short stories and articles. Reading newspapers is really useful, in particular the sort of traditionally what they would be called the broadsheets, because they tend to be used more in the exams, so The Guardian, The Times, etc. English literature, your child should be revising the 4 texts that were mentioned: Macbeth, A Christmas Carol, and Inspector Calls, and the poems. In terms of the first 3, Macbeth, A Christmas Carol, Inspector Calls, the questions are going to be based around characters in the play, themes in the text as well, and relationships. Your child will also have to have a good handle on the events in the narrative, along with some useful quotations and an awareness of historical contexts. For the anthology poetry, it's similar there actually, themes that link the poems together. Because in the exam they will be given one poem and asked to compare that to another poem of their choice, which they'll have to have a good memory of. So knowing the themes and those comparative links is really useful. Also, the effects of writers' methods. If you just say star analysis to your child, they should understand what that means in terms of analysing a text and writing about it. And comparisons between the 2 texts. So they should be able to take any 2 poems in the anthology and compare them in terms of their themes and their content. For the unseen poetry, it's a bit harder to revise, but it doesn't mean you can't. If they're used to reading poetry that they haven't read before, if you've got any kind of poetry anthologies or anything, they're quite easy to pick up from the school library and from public libraries as well. Further revision activities your child could be doing. We are going to go live with some Seneca homeworks for Year 11. Expect that probably closer towards October. In the meantime, your child can be accessing GCSE Pod with their Radcliffe login, and there's hundreds of videos about Lang and literature that they could be using to inform annotations or notes. We're not going to do sketch pads this year. For the last 2 years, we've given sketch pads out to Year 11, but because of the sort of COVID restrictions, we're not doing that this year. However, if you want to do that independently at home, there is a page on the website, on the curriculum section of the website, to sort of help you get started with that. And it has been an effective means of revision in the past for our Year 11s. In terms of how you can help your child, there's a number of ways. I mean, obviously it does help to have a suitable environment at home for doing revision and a kind of a revision timetable worked out. Discussing the texts with your child, even if you don't know what they are, asking them what they are and what they're like and whether they like them, and just sort of quizzing them a little bit is always useful. I talked about reading newspapers and sort of extracts. The British Library website is very good for 19th century extracts of letters and sort of correspondence. And also making the GCSE texts available at home. So all those texts that I mentioned will have links up on the website to the editions that you can get, as well as revision guides that are useful in terms of studying and getting prepared for the texts. The AQA website's also very good because it's got loads of past exam papers on it. So aqa.org.uk, and if you follow the link at the bottom of this slide, it'll get you straight to it.
Good evening, my name's Mr Humble, the Key Stage 4 Maths Coordinator, and as you can see we've got Mr Morrison, the Maths Curriculum Team Leader, and both our emails are on the screen if you'd like to contact us. So for the Maths GCSE course, which is known as the 9-to-1 Maths course, it's a much greater focus on problem solving, providing clear mathematical arguments. There is additional content in the last 2 or 3 years in both the higher and the foundation level. Higher, for example, has got quadratic sequences. Foundation, for example, has got trigonometry, which it didn't have 3 or 4 years ago. There's no formulae provided for higher and foundation. For the higher, the only formulae provided will be actually in the exam for cones and spheres. The higher tier students will be following the Edexcel exam course, and there are 3 papers, all 80 marks each, all for 90 minutes each, and it is the non-calc paper first. Foundation is slightly different, still 3 papers, but they're worth 100 marks each. They're equally weighted, but it is the calculator paper first, but they'll be reminding you at the time about that. These are the resources we mainly use to support our delivery of the maths curriculum. The bottom 2 books are full of questions, etc. for us to use in class. The book in the top left-hand corner is the Access to Foundation for students that are not quite ready to start the foundation course, but will be soon. And the 4 books in the top right-hand corner are revision workbooks and guides that can be bought for £2.50 from the school and are also used by us as well to deliver the curriculum. They also work together, so the workbook and guide, for example, if trigonometry is on page 17 in the workbook, it'll also be on page 17 in the revision guide. The dates for the summer exams are to be confirmed for both the core maths and for the statistics. They're typically late May and the first half of June. For our in-school support opportunities, revision clubs in the current circumstances are to be confirmed, and that's the same for small group interventions. This is all the equipment that you require. The key piece of equipment in maths is the scientific calculator. On the right hand side is all the formulae that, as I mentioned earlier, the students are meant to know. If you Google 9-to-1 maths formulae, it will come up as that particular documentation on the right, but the students are also given a copy of that. How you can support your child at home: make sure they've got all their equipment and they bring it to school regularly. Make sure, if you can, that they have the revision guides and the workbooks. Make sure they're familiar with all the websites. Some websites are free and they can access them and they're aware of them, and some websites we subscribe to. Those websites are back on slide 4 if you'd like to see those. Make sure homework's done regularly and any additional revision, and make sure they've got into good sleeping and eating habits. So again, it's just a reminder of the CTL and Key Stage 4 coordinator and our email address, and you've got the school phone numbers there as well.
I'm just going to wrap up the main part of this evening before we allow you to click on the links for all of the other subject areas. Before we do, we had invited you to send in some questions, so using that email address that we spoke about earlier, we've had a few questions in, and hopefully we can answer a few of those now, but that email account will stay live for the next couple of weeks to allow you to ask questions if we haven't answered them tonight. So, first question: will this year group get the after-school extra lessons that were on offer to previous year groups? If not, what additional work is being set? So I have previously said, yes, we are now in a position to offer these. That will begin from the 28th of September on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and it will run from 3:05 to 3:55 and will follow the calendar that's going to be published on the school website. In terms of other support, please look at the reconnection plans, and please look at those apps and websites that we've suggested earlier in this evening's presentation. Do you have official dates of exams yet, and are they still up for debate? So again, we have provisional dates only at the moment. In terms of debate, there isn't really a debate. They will be prescribed by the DfE and the government in all their wisdom. So we will wait to hear those dates and we will share those with you as soon as they become available. Okay, next we have a question about mock exams and assessments. I've previously mentioned there will be one set of mock exams this year. They will take place in January of 2021. It will be a full experience where students sit every exam they will do in the summer term, including all of the papers. In terms of other assessments, we will do those in subject areas. They will be ongoing as they would have been planned to be anyway, but we won't be doing anything more formal than that. So one set of formal mocks, everything else takes place in class with the subject teachers. The reason being is that PLCs will form the basis of all of our assessment. They are live, ongoing documents and they identify the strengths and weaknesses of the students. So they are continually updated by the staff and periodically uploaded into Insights. We've had a question about period 7 sessions and are they open to everybody? The answer to that is a simple yes, they will be open to all students. So if you study biology and there's a biology session on, yes, you can attend that session. Whether it's to reinforce your strong learning already that you have and your strong knowledge, or whether it's to improve on an area identified in your PLC. So all students can come to all sessions that they study. So we've had a question about special educational needs and access arrangements for exams. Due to COVID and not being in school, then the exam access testing did get delayed slightly, so we are slightly behind where we would have liked to have been. However, that is now in process. We are part way through that and it will be fully in place and fully awarded by the time we do the mock exams. We intend to use full access arrangements for the mock exams, and where students have the opportunity to practice with access arrangements in class time, we'll also make that available too. Thank you for attending this virtual Year 11 information evening. It's not quite normally how we would run things, but I'm sure you can appreciate we've had to do things slightly differently this year. We will leave a recording of this evening's presentation on our school website so you can access it throughout the year. Hopefully you found most of it useful, and if you haven't found it useful yet, hopefully it will have a purpose later in the year. Just a reminder, you have seen tonight presentations from myself, Mrs. Kane, English and Maths, and if you want to look at any of the other options that you study, please click on the links on the school website. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.